I'd like to tell you a story tonight. And this story comes not only from sacred Jewish writings, but also from a tradition of the 8th century from an Arab village in Palestine. It is the story of a dream of how the world can be sometimes. The story relates that long before the temple in Jerusalem was built, 2 brothers lived and farmed on that site where the temple stood. One was married and had a large family, many children, and the other was single. He had no family, he had no children, he lived alone. And they lived close to each other, and each worked his own land, growing this grain that they harvested. And when harvest was upon them, they each had a lot to harvest. They each had plenty of grain, and they were very happy. And they could even put things into long-term storage because they had so much that grew from the land. The unmarried brother, the brother who didn't have all that family, lay awake at night and he worried about his brother. He said, "My brother has so many mouths to feed. He has such a large family to take care of. Surely I should take some of my grain and place it secretly in his storehouse so that he will be helped by my plenty." And as it happens, that same night, the brother who was married and had a large family lay awake in his bed, and he was thinking, "My poor brother, he lives all by himself. He has no one to help him harvest all of his grain. Surely I should take some of the grain that was so easy for me to harvest because my whole family was helping me and give it to him so that he has some of my plenty." So he too arose in the middle of the night, and both of them went out on their missions and made it back safely. When they woke in the morning, of course, each pondered why there was no change in the size of the stores that were in their storehouses. They certainly expected that to look different in the morning. And so they decided they would repeat this activity that night. And they did this. And of course, again, in the morning, they looked and found that there was no change in how much grain they had stored away. This pattern repeated itself over and over again until finally, one night, the brothers actually bumped into each other on their nighttime missions to help each other. In that instant, in the dark of night, meeting there in the middle of this mountain, the glow of brotherly love lit up the sky. And they each understood what the other one had been doing all this time and fell into each other's arms in a loving embrace and cried. And according to this legend, God smiled at this moment and declared, "This is where my name should live. My name will live here." And so the ancient Israelites chose this spot to build the temple. A modern day example that resonates, at least for me, as part of this legend. And you will be able to find this on video if you wish to look this week to this miraculous occurrence. But there's a video circulating that shows something that happened on Monday when probably many of us were asleep or perhaps just getting up, depending on how early you get up, at that very spot where this legend says that the brothers found one another. At that spot, today, it's important for us to know, at what is left of the temple, the remnants of that, the western wall, men and women do not pray together. They pray separately, and they are separated by what's called a mechitza, a wall, which neither can cross. And in that place today, this same place, only the men are allowed to sing out loud and pray out loud, and only the men are allowed to read from a Torah scroll in public at this spot where God's name is said to dwell. They are separated by this mechitza. And there are many people who want to change this rule. There are many people, men and women, who believe that this is not the way that the place should be where God's name is dwelling. And that includes a group called the Women of the Wall, a group led by a Reformed Jewish activist, Anat Hoffman, who you may have heard of. And on Monday, for the first time in over 20 years, the Women of the Wall read aloud from a full-size Torah scroll on the women's side of this mechitza. How did this come to be? How did this miraculous event occur? It happened because several courageous men and women opened the mechitza And the brave men on the men's side took the Torah scroll, passed it through the wall to the brave women who were standing on the women's side. And when the women received this Torah from the men on the men's side, they danced with it, they sang with it, and they read from it out loud. First time in a very long time. The men who passed the Torah through this wall are very brave, courageous people, and they put themselves in great danger to do this righteous thing. And it would have been much easier to keep the wall closed. And the women who received it also put themselves in great danger. It would have been much easier not to open that wall and take the Torah from the hands of these men. That little crack in the mechitza, that little opening that you can see on video as the Torah comes through the wall, is as powerful an image as these two brothers who hug and cry in the middle of the night, in the middle of this mountain, when they've realized what they've been doing in secret this whole time. Those cracks in those walls of fear and selfishness are what caused God to smile and say, "My name lives here." So sometimes, when it seems like there are too many walls, let's remember those stories. Sometimes the walls open up. Sometimes we can meet in the middle. Sometimes love and wisdom can pass through them. And sometimes that love and wisdom can change the world. So let this be our prayer as we celebrate Israel's 67th birthday this week, only yesterday, that next year will bring more moments when God is moved to say, because of meeting in the middle, "My name lives here." Shabbat shalom.